setting the record straight, women have no emotional intelligence.
What's shaking, lovelies? Welcome to another episode of Flirting with Danger on the DOLCE VITA lifestyle channel. We talk about everything that makes life great. Beautiful nouns, people, places, and things, travel, adventure, living your life on your own terms, lifestyle design, of course, relationships, sex, dating, rock and roll, all things real human connection. And so, we're trying to all be better. We're trying to improve. We're trying to be better versions of ourselves, ideally. And today, the Dangerous One will be talking about relationships because, after all, it is Flirting with Danger. And here we go. So this is going to be a reaction video. I really like these because you get to see in real time kind of, try to do as spur of the moment as possible so it's not too rehearsed. I don't really like rehearsed. I like to do things spontaneously because it's just kind of guy I am. So let's get into it. This is from the YouTube channel, The Happy Wife School. And I've been watching I've seen a few of her videos. I've probably seen about 4 or 5 of them. And she has some really interesting content on there. And, kind of old school way of looking at things, very traditional. But, in a world that's going completely off the edge, particularly in dating, I think kind of bringing it back in the middle might be, it's food for thought. Let's think about these things. And she said some things that, that I was like, very interesting. Interesting way of looking at it. To hear a woman say this, a modern woman say this. A lot of guys, I think it, but for whatever reason, don't think they're allowed to say it. Nevertheless, this lady's saying some things, and I want to respond to it. So I think I've seen the first minute of this video, which made me think, this would be a great reaction video. Let's not watch too much of it. Let's check it out. And that way I can watch it as you're watching it, and I can make some commentary, and then we'll go from there. But before we get started, you know what to do. If you find any value in this content, like it. If there's a love it button, love it a lot. Love it like I would love it. All right, so here we are. We're about to launch this bad boy, but this is about emotional intelligence and women. Now, emotional intelligence, before we get into this, I kind of have an idea what she's going to say. I've seen the first minute, and she starts off with a bang. She goes right into it. And I hear, like nowadays, there's all these catchphrases that people use, these buzzwords that I don't think a lot of people really have taken the time to really think about what they're saying. They just talk about because everyone else is using it. So it's a buzzword. People don't really think about what it really means. Is it accurate even? I think a lot of these buzzwords are not very accurate. They're just regurgitated propaganda. And so let's dive into this one. I think one of them is emotional intelligence. I think we can have a discussion about it. And this is called emotional intelligence and marriage. That's the context. So I'm interested to hear what she has to say. But emotional intelligence is one of those buzzwords that everyone uses, kind of like my truth. I hate that term, my truth. There's truth and there's not truth. There's your perspective. There's your opinion. We'll take that. There's nothing about your truth. Let's hear what she has to say. This is interesting.
The falseness we live in as women is believing that we have high emotional intelligence. And setting the record straight, women have no emotional intelligence. The reason that as women we want to believe we have
no emotional intelligence. She's starting off with a bang. Like I said, she gets right out of the gate here. So I'm sure she pissed off at least a third of the audience. Let's go.
Emotional intelligence is because we are emotional. Because we are emotional, as women, we want to think we have high emotional intelligence. But the truth is the fact that we are highly emotional is actually the biggest indicator that we have very low emotional intelligence.
She makes a good point here. So I've been in sales my whole life, and sales I always considered it's professional relationship building. I also consider it to be, being able to study and understand human psychology in real time, be able to respond to it appropriately. And much of sales is understanding human beings, understanding what makes them tick. If you have twins, and again, I don't care what sex they are, one of them is highly emotional, makes decisions emotionally. One of them is sees the world more logically, more stoic in nature, more analytical in nature. Maybe one's an accountant and the other one's a therapist, or the other one's I don't whatever, right? 9 times out of 10, if I have a choice, I would choose the emotional person to sell to, regardless of what gender they are, because emotional people are buyers. They make decisions emotionally. So if I can reach them emotionally, which I think is easier sometimes, I know that I can get them to make, and I'm not trying to get them to make a rational. I'm not that type of sales guy. I want to do what's best for them. I'm there to serve them, to service them. But if I were not that kind of guy, and I would say a politician, for example, I would want to have my person be as irrational as possible. And irrational has to do not with logic in terms of making decisions, has to do with emotion. So if you have somebody in front of you that's emotional, I want them 9 times out of 10 because they're much more likely to make a rational buying decision as someone who's not, whether that's with consumerism in the economy, whether that's with politics, you're voting for the wrong person, whether it's with, or they're voting for the wrong reasons. It's easily to persuade someone more easily when they're emotional. And because emotion clouds your judgment. And emotion is not, it's very unpredictable and it's very erratic. Yeah, I see what you're saying. How can someone be truly intelligent, emotionally intelligent when you are clouded with emotion? So it makes sense to me as a salesperson and somebody who enjoys human psychology. And one last thing before I move on, I don't want to interrupt all the time because when I'm watching reaction videos, I hate when people do that. But if you notice the background, ladies, I want you to notice the background. Women, you are the source of your unhappiness. You're also the source of your happiness. In other words, no one can make you happy. Gentlemen, you are not there to make them happy. They're there to make themselves happy, and you're doing the best you can to make each other happy. She's there to try to bring you, fulfill you, give you joy. You're trying to do the same for her. You're not there to make the other person happy. If they're not happy naturally, it's very difficult for a partner to come in and make them happy. That's not how it works. That's not the mindset. All right, here we go.
Because being emotional is having no control over our emotional state, which is low emotional intelligence. High emotional intelligence is the ability to be pragmatic,
facts,
to see things realistically, and to make choices and respond to life not from an emotional place. It's the ability to be in control of our emotional state and operate in life from that place. And so women, we have it so backward to think that because we are emotional, that we have emotional intelligence. We have it completely flipped.
A little recovered. Okay. She makes a very good point. There's a lot of women, and men for that matter, the mistake being emotional for being emotionally intelligent. Just because you're more emotional doesn't make you emotionally more intelligent. It means you deal with emotions more often, maybe. We're not even that. You just are guided more by your emotions. Men deal with emotions all the time, but we're just stoic in the way we deal with them. In other words, a lot of times we realize that we're emotional about something one way or the other, but we don't allow it to impact too heavily our decision-making process. And that's the key difference. And it doesn't cloud our judgment as much. So don't mistake being emotional for having emotional intelligence. Just because you're experiencing a lot of emotions and you're very familiar with feeling them all the time doesn't mean that you're more emotionally intelligent than the person beside you who happens to be a guy or a woman who's more logical.
The fact that we are emotional and we let our emotions run the issues and problems in our marriage, and we run off being highly emotional in our lives, lets us know we have no control over our emotional state, which is the definition of low emotional intelligence, the inability to be in control of our emotional state. So, what we have to learn to do in our marriages is to learn to be in control of our emotional state. And what women would need to know is that we have.
What's interesting about that is boys, if they if they grow up with a strong father figure or brothers or male influences that are older, and they're taught and they're conditioned to be in control, right? Conditioned to be in control of their emotions. Now, modern society says men need to be able to be vulnerable and all this. We know that women are not really attracted to that vulnerability over time, or at least not in the same way that they don't want men behaving like women. They're not going to be attracted to that. And is that good for society either? That's the other thing, not just for marriages, not just for relationships, but for society. The Clint Eastwoods of the world, or the strong stoic man. You didn't see gun violence the way it is now. You didn't see people being disrespectful the way they are now. You didn't see people treating their neighbors poorly, because it was shameful. And if it's like no different than having a big brother, and a big brother sees you acting like an asshole, you're acting like an asshole, stop it. All right, I don't want to do that again. And then they would shame you in a good way. So this is what I would call good bullying. Okay, you're not going to behave that way anymore. You're acting like an ass. You're embarrassing us. You're being disrespectful to your neighbor, to whoever. Act right. And then they grow up to be mature, stoic men.
Have all the control and power to make a marriage so successful, and to have it be so happy and wonderful, and it's almost indescribable how amazing your marriage can be with a good man, simply by learning to be in control of your emotional state in a constructive, genuine way. And that's the best part to me, and why I like the concept of emotional intelligence is, one, if I know that it's my emotional state as a woman that is the problem in the marriage, then I have that internal locus of control and study.
You think about how many problems arise in relationships because of people's perceptions, or lack of stoicism, or lack of control of their emotions. And you're not in a good mood for whatever reason. For like anyone else, you're stressed about something, you're not in a good mood. Suddenly you're in an argument over something that you would normally never be argumentative about. So if you have someone who's kind of emotionally volatile, or doesn't have control of their emotions, emotionally unintelligent, that is a recipe for disaster. I would urge you, both men and women, that should be one of the first things that pops up on your filter. How emotionally in control is this person? All right. So if you want to say emotional intelligence, maybe emotional control is a suitable synonym.
The record straight, women have no emotional intelligence. The reason that as women we want to believe we have emotional intelligence is because we are emotional. Because we are emotional, as women, we want to think we have high emotional intelligence. But the truth is the fact that we are highly emotional is actually the biggest indicator that we have very low emotional intelligence, because being emotional is having no control over our emotional state, which is low emotional intelligence. High emotional intelligence is the ability to be pragmatic, to see things realistically, and to make choices and respond to life not from an emotional place. It's the ability to be in control of our emotional state and operate in life from that place.
And ladies, don't get this confused with someone being cold or someone being heartless because they aren't emotionally distressed or nutty all the time. That's not the same thing. Being stoic, being someone who's pragmatic, and somebody who doesn't allow their emotions to dictate what their behaviors are going to be during the day, Uh, that is actually emotional control, emotional intelligence, if you want to call it that, fine. But that's actually being strong and independent. You know, you hear that word, that's another buzzword that gets thrown around all the time. How are you going to be fierce, strong, independent women when you're not in control with it? And it goes for the guys too. This is not a gender thing, but I do hear a lot of women throw out that emotional intelligence. I hear complaints from women a lot about how they wish their men were more emotionally intelligent. And oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes, I find that the very women that say this, are the ones that are most emotionally out of control, or more likely to be manipulated by their own emotions, or it clouds their judgment when making decisions.
And so women, we have it so backward to think that because we are emotional, that we have emotional intelligence. We have it completely flipped. The fact that we are emotional and we let our emotions run the issues and problems in our marriage, and we run off being highly emotional in our lives, lets us know we have no control over our emotional state, which is the definition of low emotional intelligence, the inability to be in control of our emotional state. So, what we have to learn to do in our marriages is to learn to be in control of our emotional state. And what women would need to know
Preach, sister.
is that we have all the control and power to make a marriage so successful and to have it be so happy and wonderful, and just it's almost indescribable how amazing your marriage can be with a good man, simply by learning to be in control of your emotional state. And
Let's take this a step further. You single ladies out there, if you're having some volatile relationships, you can't seem to get in a good relationship, or men seem to be, besides all the normal challenges that you have in the dating market nowadays, if a guy spots emotional unintelligence or a lack of emotional control that she's describing, you're not even going to get in a good relationship to start with, much less be married to the type of guy that you want to be married to, because guys smell that. Just like you can smell desperation in a guy, guys can smell women who are not in emotional control, who let their emotions take them over. And of course, it's going to impact them, and they know that. That is a high maintenance behavior that we often talk about.
a constructive, genuine way. And that's the best part to me, and why I like the concept of emotional intelligence is, one, if I know that it's my emotional state as a woman that is the problem in the marriage, then I have that internal locus of control, and I can change, and I can actually change the marriage. So that's one reason I really like the concept of emotional intelligence. The second reason I like it is that emotional intelligence, unlike our intellect and intelligence that we are born with, emotional intelligence is a developed skill. It's something that we can learn, and it's a skill set that everyone has the capacity to learn. Good men already operate from a place of high emotional intelligence. It is the biggest lie and the biggest myth out there that men are emotionally inept, emotionally unattuned, and
Truth.
have low emotional intelligence. I saw an atrocity of an article a few weeks ago doing some research. The title was something like, Men, if you want a healthy relationship or a healthy marriage, you need to learn to develop high emotional intelligence. It broke my heart
It's just another catchphrase in society, just another way of demeaning men.
to see that article, because it could not be more false. Good men are pragmatic, they're problem solvers, they will do anything to fix the issue. They very easily can operate from a place of being pragmatic, set their emotions aside, and focus on the big picture and focus on the reality. That's why it's so wonderful as women that if we can learn to develop high emotional intelligence to be in control of our emotional state, watch my mic here, and we're married to a good man, that's where we can have this incredible dance in this incredible relationship we never even imagined possible, that we can actually have a truly happy marriage. Truly, truly, truly happy marriage, simply by working on ourselves to develop high emotional intelligence, to be in control of our emotional state, which makes us feel really good about who we are. And it gives us a sense of self, and it allows us to create a healthy relationship with ourselves. Instead of feeling disconnected, scattered, reactive, irritable, needy, in a constant state of worry about made up scenarios, as a woman, when we develop high emotional intelligence internally, we feel grounded, we feel at peace, we feel in control, vibrant, alive. We feel supported in ourselves. We have the ability to see things for the reality. Key piece, when we live from high emotional intelligence, we live from a place of taking accountability and responsibility for our experiences, taking accountability and responsibility for ourselves, that we actually have a responsibility for who we are and how we show up in life and how we show up in our marriage. And from that place, that's the internal experience we have. And it creates a whole new lens and perspective of your marriage. From low emotional intelligence, we have the lens and perspective in the marriage that our husband is the problem, and blaming our husbands and constantly working to try to get them to change.
Well, that's just a victim mentality. That goes for men and women. That goes for our society in general. Everybody now is participating in what I call the victimization Olympics and trying to get the gold medal. Who's the most oppressed? Who's victimized the most? Who's, and those same people, ironically, are the same ones that often go around, masquerading as strong and independent and demand that you call them strong and independent, see them as strong and independent. But there's nothing empowering about giving your power to somebody else and saying, I'm a victim all the time. And there are some real victims out there, and it's not fair to them. Most of us are unbelievably blessed and unbelievably privileged when you do the comparisons of what time in life we live, time of great technology, of great medical breakthroughs. We're living like the best kings of all time if could ever imagine leaving, even if we're middle class. Our poorest people are some of the richest people on earth. I mean, it's really it's a lack of perspective that we always talk about. All right.
And it creates a very, very negative, destructive lens of the relationship and the marriage. However, when we're coming from an internal experience of high emotional intelligence, we feel good about who we are. We want to be problem solvers. We take accountability. We're grounded. We're at peace in ourselves. That creates the lens through which we see the marriage. And then we can actually see our husbands, who are good men, through that lens. We see their,
what you just said, perfect.
We see their thoughtfulness. We focus on the good things. We focus on what's to come and the possibilities. Whereas when we're in low emotional intelligence, we focus on everything that we feel is wrong. We focus on everything negative. We're critical. We nag. We're controlling. We worry. And that's the lens we create. And then that's the relationship we get. But from the lens of high emotional intelligence, that's where we can have a really happy, healthy marriage. And it's so much simpler.
All right. Wrapping up. What'd you guys think? Pretty cool. I got to say that she's very good. Again, that's about fourth or fifth video I've watched of hers, and great positive mindset, great way of looking at things. And I think she made a lot of really good points. And and I think men and women can benefit from that, that perspective, not just women. I think the only reason she was pointing out women, because it's the Good Wife show, right? Or whatever. And the other thing is, I don't think men go around. I've never heard a guy say publicly that women have low emotional intelligence. Number one, we never even use that term. That's a feminine, probably a feminist propaganda word is my guess, but who knows? But we don't go around saying those things. We don't even think about those things. We just are who we are typically. And, that is usually fairly stoic, at least classically. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, comment. I'd like to know what you guys think about that. Because, I think there's a lot of people that are like, what is this emotional intelligence thing. This is this fad. We're going around judging people's emotional intelligence. What is that? You know, how emotionally intelligent are you? These are on dating sites and stuff now, I think, even. I mean, it's everywhere. I want an emotionally intelligent guy. What does that mean? Define that. I don't think most people know what the fuck emotional intelligence even is. And I'll tell you something right now. I think it's really about emotional control. And if you're going to talk about emotional control and being stoic and being pragmatic and finding solutions instead of problems and not making decisions based off irrational emotions, I think you're going to find that a lot of these people are going around saying it the most and bringing up this buzzword the most and talk about how strong and independent they are the most are the ones that probably are not as emotionally intelligent as they should be. All right, till next time, guys. Stay safe, not too safe, live dangerously.